2010, men struck again. This time it was in reaction to statements credited to Governor of Delta State, Dr. Emmanuel Uduaghan, when he said MEND was a mere media creation. MEND, however, turned out to be real. All it took for the group to re-announce itself was to detonate a couple of bombs to disrupt a summit of South-South leaders in Warri. The Vanguard newspapers had organized a South-South summit with several South-South governors in attendance. It was a gathering that included Dr. Uduaghan of Delta State, Adams Oshomole, Edo State, and Timipre Silva, Bayelsa State, as well as traditional rulers and numerous South-South political leaders and leaders of thought. The only notable absentee was Chief Edwin Kiagbodo Clark, who ironically was a special guest of honor at the summit.
An amnesty in this region has brought
MEND is back. The precision, the execution of the bomb attack on Independence Day bears the familiar trademark of this group. It bore MEND's daredevil signature in terms of modus operandi and execution. The same pattern which had come to be associated with MEND whenever it carries out its dastardly attacks. Henry Orka, the seemingly well-educated son of a retired naval officer who was turned into an arms smuggler and a gun runner, is the suspected leader of MEND, but he is not the last cell of this militant group, which had hitherto operated as an umbrella organization for several armed groups. It is rumored that sometimes MEND pays cash or guns to launch attacks. Orka has denied any involvement in the Abuja twin bombings, but he has not refuted claims that MEND did it. Instead, Henry Orka's telephone interview from custody on Al Jazeera created another interesting twist to the story.
Very close associate of President Jonathan called me on the phone and explained to me that there have been bombings in Nigeria, and that President Jonathan wanted me to reach out to the group MEND and get them to retract the earlier statement they issued claiming the attacks, and that they wanted to blame the attacks on the northerners who were trying to fight against him coming back as president. And if this was done, I wasn't going to have any problems with the South African government.
A few days after the bombing, he alleged that an aide of President Jonathan had requested him to retract statements that MEND was responsible for the attack because government wanted to blame the incident on northern politicians. But can Orka's words be believed, or was he just being a mischievous criminal? In 2009, shortly after the end of amnesty, Orka granted the following interview to Al Jazeera.
Threat is real, you know, and I think, you know, in a few months, if the government doesn't start addressing the real demands of the people of Niger Delta, the government doesn't start speaking to the right people, addressing the real problems, there will be a resumption in violence very soon.
Here, Orka predicted that the warfare is not yet over. Meanwhile, there are unconfirmed reports that Orka might just be upset about being ignored in the post-amnesty program despite his role in the peace process. Mujahid Asari Dokubo is the leader of Niger Delta People's Volunteer Force. His group had unconditionally accepted the federal government amnesty in 2009. On his Facebook page, and barely a week after the bombing, Asari Dokubo alleged that he had informed government that Orka was planning a bomb attack. This was also reported in some national newspapers on Saturday, 9th of October. Dokubo claimed that sadly his alert was ignored. Earlier, on October 3rd, Dokubo Asari, who spoke to Sunday Vanguard on phone, said it was obvious that the explosions were masterminded by a militant leader and his followers under the auspices of MEND, saying he would watch whether government will succumb to his intimidation or take the right step to bring him to book. The declarations and allegations of the famed ex-militant Alhaji Mujahid Dokubo Asari, which he posted on the internet on Friday, 8th October 2010, deserve a closer examination. He had blamed Henry Orka unequivocally for the 1st of October Abuja twin bombing. According to Sarido Kubo, Oka was a bloodthirsty monster and we're watching the monster run amok. In Asari's own words, 15 days before now, the intelligence unit of NDPVF, acronym for Niger Delta People's Volunteer Force, had a stunning revelation and uncovered a plot by Henry Oka to rearm militants, to rearm his criminal gangs in the region, who intercepted large cache of arms that were being sent to his new recruits around the Boni, New Calabar, Sombrero and St. Bartholomew rivers. This information was promptly forwarded to the security agencies that Henry Oka was up to something. These persons in government and its agencies dismissed it, that I was a rabid hater of Henry Oka. Asarido Kubo stated further, I was still worried and sent warnings to them that Henry Oka was up to something. A close associate of the president just dismissed it by saying, which time you and Henry Oka quarrel go end? When will your quarrel with Henry Oka come to an end? Asari provided a chronology of what he alleged was Oka's vendetta against President Goodluck Jonathan, stating categorically that Henry Oka did not start today in his march to destroy Goodluck Jonathan. He claimed that Oka's men was responsible for burning down President Jonathan's country home in Otueke, Bayelsa State. More so, Oka was responsible for the Warri bombing a few months ago when Jonathan was acting president. In Asari's words, Henry Oka was responsible for the bomb blast that the post-amnesty conference organized at Warri, where most of the governors of the Niger Delta states were present. His grounds was that the governors of Bayelsa and Delta states said that Mend was dead and only existed in the internet. The bomb explosion caused the death of 3 innocent Niger Deltans who were in no way related to the governors of Bayelsa and Delta states at all. Finally, Sarido Kubo wondered why the bomb blast took place very close to the Izo Warri, the house of Ijo people, Bayelsa liaison office. Also, what could be made out of the statement credited to Special Advisor to the President on Niger Delta, Mr. Timi Alaibe, that Jomugbomo is Oka and Oka is Jomugbomo. Government had claimed variously in the last week that Mend was not responsible, that Mend was disbanded, but enter Rambo. Less than 48 hours to the Abuja twin bombing, Al Jazeera reportedly visited a men camp led by a hooded militant by the name Rambo.
You came on a boat, you saw with your own eyes, you saw the villages and whatever. Was there lights like power? No. No schools, no first aid point, dispensaries and whatever, nothing. You'll be able to tell if it's an animal or a human being.
He then proceeded to show us stockpiles of new equipment they boasted will be used in overnight attacks on the installations of foreign oil companies. The Nigerian government claimed to have crushed Mend. These images appear to suggest the opposite. We were then allowed to walk freely around the camp for 10 minutes.
This camp for Mend fighters is under construction, but it can be dismantled within about 3 hours and they can move to a new location entirely. Fighters are constantly on the move.
And their anger and frustration is palpable.
90% of this world belongs to us. You can see somebody from nowhere will come and start owning an oil well, whatever, in my own backyard. And me, I'm living here. This is my house. This is the oil well here. I don't even have a cup of oil. How do you justify that?
We then asked whether men were planning more attacks.
The attacks are on. They are on.
Less than 48 hours after this interview took place, this.
This Al Jazeera interview makes a mockery of the purported disbandment and total demobilization of Mend or any rogue element of the former Mend command structure. Maybe the blast could have been prevented if the information passed on to government were acted upon and the necessary security procedures put in place. It's alleged that the British intelligence also had the same information and acted on it. They issued a travel warning to their citizens and thus the absence of the Duke of Gloucester, who was to represent the Queen of England. Also, US officials stayed away from the event. Why did Nigeria prevail on South African authorities to raid Henry Oka's South African residence the night before the attack, yet disregarded available intelligence when the same Jomugbomo sent warnings to evacuate the area an hour before the explosion? Many curious observers have interpreted the invitation of ex-militant to Asorok by government to further exonerate Mend as a publicity stunt to justify President Jonathan's utterance exonerating Mend of the attack.
And of course, when this is happened, the name of Mend was mentioned. I'm happy that you are here because I am from there and I know the actors of Mend and the leaders of Mend, and you are all here.
So, is Mend real?
Most of those who have come out, who the government declares, most of the 15,000 or so declared by the Nigerian government, in my opinion, are rented crowd. And I don't think, in my own opinion, I think maybe like 500 real fighters may have participated in this amnesty program.
What about some of the guns that we've seen paraded on television that the government says has come from militants?
Government knows that's not true. There are thousands of weapons, thousands, much more than were supposedly removed from Delta. There are thousands more.
Oka was held for nearly 3 years in prison for allegedly arming fighters in Nigeria's oil-producing states, but was never convicted.
I don't look at it like I'm contributing to the violence. I'm participating in a fight for my right. You understand?
Are you involved in funding militancy? Are you involved in providing weapons to militants?
I don't have such funds. But in any way I can be of assistance, I will assist.
Are you repentant?
Oh, no, I'm not. Why should I be? Why should I be?
The culture.
And despite serving time in prison, Oka says he will support fighters who attack and sabotage oil installations if peace efforts fail.
The oil companies are on our land. If somebody comes on our land without our consent, it is our problem, that's our business to get rid of them. If somebody takes control of your house or your car, what you want is your house or your car back from him. And that's it, you know. What we want from these oil companies is our land. You know, and then they can sort it out with the Nigerian government who permitted them to be on our lands against our wills.
The State Security Service had arrested 9 suspects, a group consisting of persons of predominantly Ijaw descent and of Bayelsa origin. Are these persons known previously to the Mend operators, or is there a known front for Mend, or Oka, or any other terrorist group within or outside the country? If not, could there be real, apparent, or latent political witch hunting amiss, while the real perpetrators of the dastardly bombings walk free? More importantly, did Mend bomb Abuja as Mend itself claims? If they did, then why were the warnings of a knowledgeable ex-militant of Asari Dokubo's stature ignored by the state security agencies and the presidency? Or was Asari Dokubo merely flying the proverbial kite? If Mend did not bomb Abuja as the person of the president and government claims, then who bombed Abuja? These questions abound, but sadly, very few answers.
So you cannot use Niger Delta or Mend to cover a crime. If we continue to do that, it will come to a time that nobody, if from Benin to Port Harcourt to Warri, then to Abuja, but you can go to Maiduguri the next day, and you still talk about Mend and Niger Delta crimes. But no, it is not possible. I believe that we must unearth those who were involved.
It is the wish of millions of Nigerians that the perpetrators should be apprehended, prosecuted, and made to pay for their gruesome daylight murder of innocent Nigerians. But it will be far greater injustice both to the nation and to the memory of the souls of those whose lives were unceremoniously snuffed out on October 1, 2010, if this sad chapter is used to settle political scores. May God help Nigeria.